We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Why didn't you tell me there were mysteries? This man had a dream, a forbidden vision that becomes a living nightmare. What are dreams?
The way of knowing things. Dream is a shadow of something real.
Why don't you go away? You'll die.
I can't go there.
What's wrong?
He was here, the old man.
What are you saying?
He was out there in the street. Why in the name of God are you helping him?
You go to jail, all of you. You're in desperate trouble.
No. You in trouble. You don't know what dreams are anymore.
Deep beneath the city lies a secret, guarded by primeval terrors beyond imagination. I want you to take the children and go away. Away from the city. An awesome nightmare is coming. Only one man can stop it. Your dreams will never be the same again.
That was the trailer for a movie from 1977 called The Last Wave, directed by Peter Weir, starring Richard Chamberlain, and a cast of true tribal Aboriginal people, not actors. What's interesting is that the whole concept of acting doesn't really exist in Aboriginal culture. However, in the 1970s, as the film industry of Australia began to explode and become much more popular throughout the rest of the world, there was a call to somehow portray the culture of the Aboriginal people at times in a realistic light, or certainly in a cinematic sense. And these films became a bridge for the Aboriginal people to step across and become, in our eyes, what we define as actors, because the whole concept of acting is not a part of their world, not a part of their culture. Everything they do is ritual. When they act out in terms of ritual, it is part of who they are. They're not playing a role like the rest of us, apparently. What's interesting about that film as well is that it portends the end of the world as an event that occurs by water, not fire, not ice, but by water. And the gist of the movie is that Richard Chamberlain plays a lawyer. This is the synopsis. He plays a lawyer who has been assigned to defend a young Aboriginal man. The actor who plays this Aboriginal man was thrust into prominence in an earlier film called Walkabout that was directed by Nicholas Reg, and it's a very interesting film. It's a film where a young girl and a young boy get lost in the Australian outback, and they are befriended by a young Aboriginal boy who is on a walkabout, which is a vision quest and a rite of passage, and he winds up saving them. It's a fascinating movie, and so this boy grows up to be a man and is recast or cast again in The Last Wave. So Richard Chamberlain is there to defend him as a lawyer for a murder. Well, it's not really a murder. It is a death, and it is a death for knowing too much. And this is what Richard Chamberlain's character eventually finds out over the course of the film, and he's haunted by nightmares and visions of what's about to take place with the rest of the world. And I'm not going to say anything more about the film. It's an interesting movie. As you heard the trailer, they cast it a bit as a horror film in some ways, a supernatural horror film. And it has elements of that, but it's also much more than that. It gets into ritual and prophecy and dream time and all kinds of really interesting intersections between cultures, between reality. I highly recommend it. It's a film that has a unique pace and takes some time to get into, but once you get into it, it's a very powerful movie. So if you have any interest in Aboriginal culture, the concept of dream time, and even prophecy to a certain extent, I highly recommend The Last Wave. You can probably view it somewhere online for free by now. So the reason I played this is because there has been talk over the last few weeks that we are staring down what Cliff High has called the coastal event. And this is an event that apparently is scheduled for the end of the month. End of May, beginning of June. Cliff has also been talking about currency collapse, the proliferation of alien agenda and or alien disclosure and or alien conflict. He's also been talking about the submergence of the government and them actually going underground. And this has actually been documented in some ways. There's apparently a giant cave in Missouri, and there are people that have seen these trucks, these massive trucks, go into the hole in the side of this mountain in Missouri. I was talking with Dave last night about this. And there seems to be some correlation between these trucks descending into the mountain and a contingency government that's been set up as a result of what could be called the coastal event. So we have that sort of ricocheting around the internet. And Cliff apparently isn't the only one. I think Ed Dames, Dr. Doom, has talked about this, and a number of other remote viewers are considering the fact or putting out the fact that we are indeed staring something like this down. Now, I decided to get in touch with Courtney Brown, who is a remote viewer. Some of you may remember Courtney, who unfortunately was involved in the Hale Bopp incident with Art Bell and Ed Dames, and of course the Heaven's Gate cult. Courtney started the Farside Institute and has been a remote viewer, written a number of books over the last few years. And so I decided to reach out to Courtney Brown to find out what his take is on this and get him on the show. So he's agreed to be on the show, and he'll be with us on the 24th, which is a Friday, just a week before all of this is supposed to happen. Now, Courtney's got a bit of a different take on the coastal event, the global coastal event, or the GCE, as it's being called. So let me read a little bit. This is from February 19th, not too long ago. It's on Before It's News, and this is about a video that Courtney put up. It says, according to this video report from the remote viewing body, the Farsight Institute, the Earth may have dodged a bullet with the passing of asteroid 2112 DA-14 and the Russian meteorite several days ago. According to Dr. Courtney Brown, any further chance of a global coastal event occurring before June 1st, 2013 are now quite small. A 1971 U.S. Department of Defense DARPA chronovisor time travel probe to the year 2013 found the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., 100 feet, under 100 feet of brackish water. Let me read that for you again. A 1971 U.S. Department of Defense DARPA chronovisor time travel probe to the year 2013 found the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., 100 feet under brackish water. That's a lot of water, folks, 100 feet. In this important February 16, 2013 update, Dr. Courtney Brown, director of the Farside Institute, discusses his interim findings on the June 1st, 2008, June 1st, 2013 Global Climate Change Remote Viewing Study, Multiple Realities, Timelines, and Events. In this video update, Dr. Brown concludes that 15 February 2013 meteor event over Russia, the largest since the Tunguska event, coupled with the close approach of the roughly 50-meter asteroid 2012 DA-14 that occurred about 15 hours later, may constitute the meteor or asteroid event referenced in the Farsight Institute study, which predicted a global coastal event destroying most coastal cities on the planet in June 2013. Dr. Brown states he does not expect any other meteor or coastal event between February 16th and June 1st, 2013, based on the Farsight study. Dr. Brown refers to the holographic nature of reality and to the hits his remote viewers having possibly viewed a global coastal event happening in June 2013 on Earth in some other timeline or holographic version of Earth or parallel universe. Let's just play this. This is a 6-minute video from Courtney Brown. This is from the 16th of February, 2013. So let's get into this. I'm just playing this fresh right now. It's right off of YouTube. I don't know if I'm going to see any commercials or not. So bear with me here. Hopefully it will go without a hitch. We'll just transition and segue into this.
This is an early evaluation of our climate project data, a project also known as the Post-2012 Earth Changes Project that was conducted at the Farsight Institute in early 2008. This project is an attempt to use remote viewing to describe physical changes on the Earth in various locations around the globe between the time periods June 1st, 2008 and June 1st, 2013. Now, it is also a further exploration into the idea of there being multiple realities, multiple universes, or alternate timelines, an increasingly popular idea in physics that was initially raised by the physicist Hugh Everett in 1957, and that we explored in depth in a different year-long project conducted at the Farsight Institute titled the Multiple Universes Project. The results of this latter project were published in an important peer-reviewed scientific journal and can also be found on the Farsight Institute's website. Now, in the remote viewing data collected for the climate change or post-2012 Earth Changes project, the remote viewing sessions appear to describe one or more meteor or asteroid-related events affecting Earth prior to June 1st, 2013. It is very significant that in the middle of February 2013, a large meteor exploded over Russia within just a few hours of the passing of a very large asteroid, the so-called DA-14 asteroid, and within just a few thousand miles of the Earth, barely missing the planet. Now, the meteor that exploded over Russia caused a great deal of damage and personal injury, and we have not seen as significant a meteor impact on Earth since the Tunguska event that flattened a large swath of Siberia over 100 years ago in 1908. CNN reports that the probability of both a meteor of the size that just hit Russia and a near miss of a large asteroid such as DA-14 happening just a few hours apart is less than 1 out of 100 million. Well, according to the theory of multiple universes...
Well, it's cut out there for whatever reason. That's interesting. This is what happens when you play something raw. You don't know where it's going. God, Courtney Brown sounds a lot like Brother Nathaniel. It's very odd. I'll reserve judgment on that. So anyway, this is he apparently, according to Courtney Brown, the event may not go off in the same way that Cliff has determined it might go off. Cliff, of course, being Cliff High, who I've tried to get on the show numerous times, but to no avail. So, but this is circulating now in the collective consciousness. People are thinking about it. They're ruminating about the potentiality of an event like this taking place. Now, meanwhile, while we're thinking about a coastal event, something really significant is happening in the Middle East. And if you're not aware of it, Israel has attacked Syria and used missiles to hit Damascus. This is a big deal. This is a really, really big deal because Israel had not been formally engaged in the conflict. That had been mostly a UN-backed Syrian rebel, quote-unquote, force and uprising. But I don't think anything gets done in the Middle East unless Israel has its fingerprints on something, because they're involved in everything. They're involved in everything. It's their business in the Middle East to be involved with everything. And apparently the justification for the attack is about threefold. One is that Israel believes that the Syrians had Hamas purchased missiles that they were somehow going to forward to Iran. Okay, let's just think about this. If Iran wanted to have missiles, they could get missiles directly from Hamas. They wouldn't need to go from wherever the Hamas missile dealership is, and then have them get dropped into Syria, and then have them go all the way across Iraq, Israel, Iran, thousands and thousands of miles in order to get to Tehran. And even if Tehran wanted missiles, I'm sure they could get them from just about anybody else. They've got plenty of missiles. They have a missile called the Sunburn, and the Sunburn flies at a very low altitude, just a couple of 100 feet off the ground at blazing speed. It's almost indefensible. They've got hundreds of these Sunburn missiles. Why would they need to get missiles from Hamas through Syria? So this does not fly. This does not float. If we're going to continue to go with the coastal events metaphor here, it doesn't float. So that's one justification for this attack on Damascus. The second justification is that the Syrian government used sarin gas on its own people. This is not true. It's already been proven that the NATO-backed Syrian rebels used the gas themselves. So here we have these two justifications for what happened, none of which are true or even plausible, or if they were plausible, there would be other scenarios that would be much more effective and efficient. So what we have is an act of war. Israel has committed an act of war against Syria. Think about this for a second. Think about where you live, wherever you live, whatever state you live in, whatever country you live in while you're listening to this. Think about being in your capital city and all of a sudden hearing really loud noises and then explosions and then seeing destruction and death out of the blue. Think about that. This is what's happened to the Syrian people. In their capital, it is an act of war. This is the first time a country, a quote-unquote country, has intervened and taken an openly aggressive stance against the Syrian government and Syrian people. Everything up until now has been these Syrian quote-unquote rebels, Syrian freedom fighters, Syrian revolutionaries, all of whom are backed by NATO. This is the same group that came in and decided that they wanted to liberate Libya, that they wanted to liberate Egypt. I mean, these are the same people pushing the next domino to fall in the attempt to destabilize, disrupt, and then dismantle any sovereign governments around the world in order to create the new world order. This is what's happening. Syria's going to fight for its life. Now, what's interesting is that the one country that has been the most vocal in terms of its response around this is Russia. Now, people think that Russia is this kind of rogue free agent and that Putin is this, testosterone-fueled, strong leader that will stand up to anybody. I don't think that that's the case at all, to be honest with you. Not based on what I know about Putin and based on what I know about his associations with Shabbat House and some of these other groups, he feels to me like he's part of the Matrix. And he's put out there and up there as some kind of figurehead that people think is a hope, a shining hope to dismantle world tyranny. And that's not the case at all. It's not the case at all. However, Russia has offered up a stern response to what's happened in Syria. But what's interesting is that if you look at the American intelligence, especially as it relates to Zbigniew Brzezinski, his whole goal on the global chessboard is to isolate Russia. Brzezinski has long ago decided that the world's problem is Russia, and that everything must be done in order to eradicate Russia. This is the fulcrum of his global strategy. So perhaps what we're doing here is this is not against the Syrians or any other country in the Middle East, but really it's a potential war against Russia. And if we look at the involvement or the supposed involvement of the Tsarnaev brothers in the Boston Marathon event, what we have is we have the Chechen connection, and the Chechen connection, of course, would also include the Russian government. And it'll be interesting to see if what they decide, or where they decide to take the Tsarnaev and the Boston Marathon event, it'll be interesting to see if they somehow circle this back and somehow pin this on Russia, and that we are actually getting ready to do a Skip to My Lou World War III death dance with Russia. I'm just putting this out there. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I think we have to kind of look behind the scenes and see what's taking place and who the players are. Now, I've also heard that there are actually thousands of Russian troops already in this country as well. Russians, Albanians, Chinese, Mongolians, you name it, they're here, they're hanging out, they're training alongside U.S. troops as part of UN/NATO exercises. So there are a lot of different layers to what's taking place. As we've seen with the Boston Marathon, and this is clear now, this is coming out in the media. I'm not speculating. I'm not peddling conspiracy theory at all. What I'm sharing with you is something very, it's out in the open, in that the FBI creates and fosters potential terror events. They're already on the public record with this. If you look at what happened with Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City, there were people, shadowy people, that were involved in that group with McVeigh. Where was it? Elohim City. That's where they were hanging out, right? And one of them, I believe, was Middle Eastern. I think his name was, for lack of a better term, Mohammed or something like that. Anyway, this guy, I wouldn't say he entrapped Timothy McVeigh, but what he did is he created this potential event to take place. And McVeigh, who I believe was mind controlled, was drafted to be a part of it, as well as some other people. I think Terry, what was the other guy's name? Was it Terry Anderson? And then we have other events that are like this. The one that's really big is the first World Trade Center bombing, which took place. That was a big event. It was in 1997. That's when the actual bomb went off in the World Trade Center. And that guy, Sheikh Mohammed, that guy is actually in jail for that. And if you look into the inner workings of that event, you'll see that the FBI actually created the event to take place. They basically put all the players together in order to flesh them out. This is their strategy. They put people together. They sort of fuel the ideology. They fund these projects, and then what they want to do is they want to then bring them out into the open and smoke them out, and then grab them. And it's a very slippery slope, because what's really going on here? Would these people actually be full-blown terrorists if they didn't have any kind of encouragement, help, or funding? It's a big question mark. And in a lot of ways, it's quite disingenuous. It's kind of like creating the opposition in order to keep your organization alive. So the reason I bring this up is because we don't always know. We don't really understand what's taking place as much as we'd like to, as much as I do my best to try to uncover and untangle things. We don't really understand what's going on. So when we see something on the surface like Israel committing an act of war against the Syrians, by the way, it was the Syrian, I believe, Easter when Israel struck. There are no coincidences about any of this stuff, especially when blood and death and sacrifice is involved. It happens on very specific days, very specific calendrical days, which often have a religious import to them. There's a lot of power behind these days. We have Shabbat coming up on Friday, the 10th of May. It's a big day this Friday, the 10th of May. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in Pennsylvania, they're going to have a major, and I mean major, emergency disaster terror drill at an amusement park in Pennsylvania. So here we go, circle that off. If you plan on going to this amusement park in Pennsylvania, I would think twice about my travel plans. If there's an emergency or an event that's planned, some sort of a drill, go in the other direction, no matter where it is. Just go in the other direction. So May 10th is actually a pretty big day. And then, of course, we have May 11th, 5/11. Anytime we get into the 11s, it's interesting in terms of the numerical resonance. I went running yesterday. I know, that's a strange non sequitur. I went running yesterday for the first time in a long time. But let me rephrase it. I run at the gym. I do the elliptical at the gym. I like the elliptical, don't get me wrong. However, yesterday was the first day I've actually attempted like a 2-mile run on gravel and rock in a long time. And it was really quite a wake-up call for me, let me tell you. Very interesting series of moments. I made it. I wound up being about a 3.5-mile jaunt. Not all of it running, by the way, but it was a very enlightening reintroduction to the topography of planet Earth. Let's put it that way. So I'm a little sore today. I'm sure you're all really concerned about me around that. But I live in Austin, and so I decided to see other parts of Austin and run and be a part of the natural experience. And speaking of Austin, in just a few short days, 3 days from now, our president, Barack Hussein Obama, will be here, and he'll be touring a school and also a company that produces some form of technology, perhaps semiconductors. So Obama's coming to Austin. It should be very interesting, especially as it relates to Mr. Alex Jones and the InfoWars crew, who I'm sure will be active to some extent around all of this. Now, contrary to popular belief, InfoWars is much bigger outside of Austin than it is in Austin. It is not big here. Alex Jones will have an event and maybe 45 or 50 people will show up. Austin is not an organized place for doing what he does or what I do to a certain extent or to some extent. However, the global reach is much bigger. It'll be interesting to see, though, how Alex Jones interacts with this whole experience in Obama. Obama recently went on record at Ohio State University, and he was delivering the graduation address for the seniors that were graduating from Ohio State. And one of the things that he said was, don't believe people that tell you that the government is tyrannical. He made that very clear to the group of graduating seniors. So this is a very important piece to understand here, because what's taking place is that more and more people are starting to wake up, and they're trying to nip the waking up in the bud. That's what's happening. That's what's taking place. And who better than to send out and nip the waking than the president himself? So we're going to be seeing more and more of this. I've been talking about this for a while now, the split that's taking place. I just watched watched and listened to 15 minutes of Jordan Maxwell and Jeff Rance, and Maxwell was saying the exact same thing. I mean, I've been saying this for, about a year now, maybe a little bit less than a year, that we are headed towards a real fracture of our experience as one people, one nation under God. It's not that at all. We are not that at all. Jupiter and Gemini has been played to full effect, and we are now a deeply divided society, ideologically and even economically. The lines of division are greater than ever before in many ways. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't come together and we can't have a consensus about how to live, but it's most certainly a lot harder than it's been in quite some time. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a little bit of music, and when I come back, I am going to share with you my solution and how to fix it all, how to defeat the tyranny without ever firing one shot or shedding 1 ounce of blood. You don't want to miss this. I'm going to be playing here a hit, a blast from the past, yours truly, on the Matrix. This is Quarantine. I'll be back in 4 minutes and 43 seconds. All right, that was quarantine, which is a play on the word quarantine, if you haven't figured that out. And I made that. Yes, that's me, Dominatrix, my alter ego. And it started off with me finding a Shania sample that's a Shania. And it's an Egyptian flute. Actually, it's a reed instrument, not quite a flute. And I decided to play with it and sort of tweak it and electrify it a little bit. And then out of that came the beats and all that other stuff. Got pretty positive response in the chat room. So thank you for your appreciation of that. And there you go. That's the history of that track. Okay, so I left you hanging at the edge of a cliff. And that cliff is the solution to what we're going through right now. And one of the things I like about running is that sometimes ideas come to me. That's my meditation, is running, to be honest with you. And I haven't run in a long time, mostly because of the chemtrails. I got to say, I was a big runner pre-chemtrail. And yesterday, it was a perfectly clear sky, sunny day. I said, I got to go do this. And my body has said, are you sure that's a really good idea that you did that yesterday? But my spirit says yes. So anyway, the idea came to me that perhaps the solution to all of this is to not fight it. No, to not fight it. And actually to go in completely the opposite direction. And what I'm talking about is let's just all presuppose that we all agree upon the fact that the idea would be to create a one world system that is basically ruled and driven by a technological order, a technotronic dystopian reality where everybody is under the control of a select elite few who have the ability to control transactions, energy, movement, consumption of food, even where you live, via technology, whether it's through RFIDs or chips or however you want to bundle that up. But that is the version of reality we're staring down. 24-hour surveillance. It's Orwellian. It's they live. It's all mashed together, all into one nasty ball of stinking head cheese. And so let's just say that this is where it's all headed. And if you don't like it, well, you'll be re-educated or put into some camp somewhere else. But it's all under the guise of a one-world system. And there are people that don't want that. They want to be able to live where they want to live, drink what they want to drink, say what they want to say, shower when they want to shower, eat foods that they want to eat. If you want to be in New York City and you want to drink a 64-ounce soda, then why not? It's your body, right? Perhaps you even want to drive your car without buckling your seatbelt. Now, there's a radical thought. Or perhaps you want to smoke, even though you know it's not good for you. But in the world that's coming, all those decisions are made from cradle to grave. And in fact, you don't even get to raise your own kids anymore based on this model that's being pieced together. Your kids don't belong to you based on this. They're raised by the state, so on and so on and so on. And what we have here is this version of reality that looks like it's based on unity in a one world, top-down execution of order, plan, and design. And in actuality, what it really is a prison. But it looks good. It's all one world. We've all come together under the aegis of a one world order as a one world prison. Now, what if we, instead of fighting against that, said, hey, guess what? We want to join you. Yeah, we like this idea of one world. Let's get together and let's do this. Yeah, we want to sign up for that because really, ultimately, what do we want? We want one world too, right? We want peace. We want unity. We want harmony. We want our kids to be able to grow up and have enough to eat and be able to, be the best at whatever it is that they choose to be, and that their abilities and their interests lead them to, and then manifest as a vocation in their lives. We all want that. I think most of us do. So we want the same thing they do. Now, isn't that interesting? We don't want people to fight or have wars. We don't want people to haggle over resources. And in fact, we even see the world as being a very democratic place too, where people have a say in the type of government that they want and desire, where elections are held openly and freely to determine who's going to lead on a local level, if maybe not a national level, since we'll have one world anyway, nations won't matter. Now, here's the kicker. If they want the same thing, well, if they want one thing, and we want one thing, and they're basically the same, with the exception of a few draconian policies and rules that might get in the way, then what's to stop us from organizing and then bringing our party to their table, saying, hey, guess what? You don't have to do what you're doing. You don't have to have these events that are catastrophic and traumatic that force us into these fear-based experiences where we're going to have to choose security over freedom. And you're the people that are going to offer us all the security. Why? Because if we're all one and we're all secure, we're stamping out the threat. The threat to us can no longer exist because its shadow or our light is much greater than its shadow. So if you want that and we want that, why don't we get together? Why don't we sit down and have a little conversation? Why don't we say, hey, guess what? We will play with your one world order. However, there's a few things here that we got to change just a little bit, just tweak a little bit. And they may actually have to do with those sticky little things like privacy and food, right? But well, guess what? We'll play. We will play ball with you. However, we are going to determine the most important pieces that are around this for us. And you won't get any resistance at all. No resistance at all. Why? Because we understand what you want, and we want it too. We just want it to look just slightly different than how you look at what we want, right? I think this is the key. Now, you may say, Robert, you're selling out. No, I'm not selling out at all. I'm not selling out at all. This is not true. What I'm advocating here is actually people thinking about the type of world that they want, because I think we all want the positive manifestation of living in one world together without any more bullshit and strife and violence and deceit. We don't want that. We want to live in one world, in peace and harmony. And they're offering a version of one world. Now, it may not be the same version we want, but they're offering it. Not everybody's ideas are the best or most complete. So therefore, they actually need input from us to help make their version of one world just a little bit better. You see, their version is incomplete. It's based on what they want and what they think is best for us. But essentially, really, in the macro, we both want the same thing. It's just that the execution and the details are slightly different. So what happens if we say, yeah, we want that too? And oh, by the way, there's 33% of us on this planet that really think it should look a little more like this. And maybe, just maybe, we can all sit down and work out those details. What do you think? Now, they may be so inclined to say, well, you're a little bit crazy because we're the ones that are holding all the cards and you're not. In which case, at that point in time, people can just say, guess what? We're going to have it anyway. We're going to have it anyway. We are going to determine our one world existence anyway without you. And maybe you're the ones that need to play along with us. Maybe you're the ones that need to rethink what you're doing. So I guess what I'm saying here is that resistance is not necessarily futile, but it may be something that could be quite messy. And what we really need is to hold the space for something that is truly one world, but one world in the sense that it's much more organic and, using a phrase from the programming world, open sourced than anything else. Now, if we start from that place, well, then we can begin to have a bit of a dialogue now, can't we? I think it's interesting. Because now we're not in resistance to something. Now we're actually creating something that is more congruent. Let's use this as an example. Let's say it's not a virus, but it's a gene that mirrors a gene, but is slightly different, right? It's like a rogue gene that looks like it. This is what I believe. There are some genes, I believe the AIDS virus was kind of like this, that it would actually mirror, it would look like another gene inside the body, which is why it would not be attacked. And then it would wreak havoc. This is what made the AIDS virus so deadly. We could be that gene that mirrors what they want, but only slightly differently. And then what happens is that there is a natural level of congruence that begins to take place. And I'm just talking about on a psychic level, that if we push and we polarize and we're more resistant to what's being programmed for us, then things become polarized and opposite. Now, I'm not saying to lay down with them. This is not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if you and me and we have the understanding, we have the desire, we have the intention to experience one world, a world of peace, a world where everybody gets along, a world where everybody has food, a world where everybody has enough energy, a world where everybody has enough water that's clean, that this is the type of world that we want. This is the type of existence we want everybody to share. That nobody should be denied that. And on that level, we begin to mirror the model of one world for everyone, or a new version of a type of order for the world that is very different than the one that's being planned out for us now. But by doing so, we do this with the intention. This is not about hunkering down and being in a bunker and being a survivalist and waiting for everything to clear out and the dust to settle and the smoke to evaporate and then starting over. This is actually holding the space for the type of world that we want, which is truly is one world of love and peace and understanding and empathy. So, hey, let's start there. Let's start there and say, yeah, we want that too. It's a little bit different than what you want. Let's have a dialogue, shall we? Let's sit down. And you know what? If you don't want it, then we'll create it. We'll create it in our own way. You see, by doing this, we do not announce ourselves as separatists. We do not put up walls. We're not the lone wolves. What are we? We're people that care. We're a collective of open hearts and open minds that want to live as freely and democratically, lovingly, and in as enlightened way as possible. This is the foundation of it all. And apparently they want the same thing too, only just a little bit different. So this is my solution. Let's start there. Let's start with the fact that one world is a beautiful thing, and we could all occupy it together under one really tremendous and border-free experience, but based on our own definition of what that might be. Because it's there anyway right now. Borders are irrelevant. Borders are only an imaginary demarcation that's been put down by man. That's all. So what we're doing here is we're transcending. We're transcending our division, we're transcending our difference. And who knows, maybe along the way, we might actually turn a few of them on as well. I know I live in a fantasy world at times. And I'm a dreamer, but if not me, who else? All right, I'll be back on Wednesday with astrology, and maybe we'll have a guest astrologer on, and then working feverishly on getting you more guests for Friday and beyond. Soon this thank you. Soon this program will take place 5 days a week, probably sometime in June or July. And with that, a lot more content and a lot more guests as well. All right, thank you for joining me today and getting into the potential of the coastal events and then some. This is Robert Phoenix. Use your head and discern what's real, your heart stay open what's possible. And I'll be back on Wednesday with navigating the astral. Until then, Philip K. Dick.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.